Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Spurs Post-Game Reaction. By your host, I am Shivam Patel. I hope everybody's doing well this Saturday evening. The Spurs ended up getting another W against the Houston Rockets, making it 2 wins in a row. What a game it was, and the Spurs had a great overall performance and ended up getting the victory on the road. And again, everybody, please put in the comment section your reaction, any comments that you may have, any questions. They may appear live on the show. So Spurs fans, are you all excited for this victory? Because it was a big victory because the Rockets have been playing very well. They've been one of the hottest teams, in the NBA. Coming into this game, I know they didn't have Christian Wood, who is the Spurs killer. He's been putting up monster numbers against the Spurs, but Eric Gordon really stepped up. John Wall had a nice game, but it was just too much Spurs, too much DeMar DeRozan. Back-to-back 30-point game. He's playing like an all-star, ladies and gentlemen, and he wants to get voted. So make sure everybody do your part and go vote on the NBA All-Star, and let's support our hometown team and vote for DeMar DeRozan. Let's show him that Spurs Nation has his back and really appreciates the performances that he's been putting, because he's had marvelous performances. And especially, I love it that at the end of the game, the Timberwolves, he put the Spurs on his back. The offense ran through DeMar DeRozan. At the end of this game, the last 5 minutes, when it was getting a little dicey against the Rockets, what did the Spurs do? Just put it in the hands of DeMar DeRozan. Whether it's the top of the key, breaking down the defender, going to his mid-range, or in the post. When he's matched up against a smaller guy, he does a great job of, even when he picks up his dribble, pump faking, getting the defender up in the air and drawing the foul. He has a lot in his arsenal. He has a lot in his bag. He's just a well-rounded player. He's even improving his three-point stroke, which will continue to add to his game, because we know he already has the mid-range. We already know that he can drive it to the basket. But DeMar DeRozan's been really clutch down the stretch, so we can dispel this myth that DeMar DeRozan was not clutch with the Raptors, and he's been very clutch these last couple games, and has been a big reason why the Spurs got the win tonight in Houston. And anytime you get a victory against your rival, the Houston Rockets, in-state rival, in the same division as you, no matter what the record is, it always feels good as a Spurs fan. Because like I said earlier, the Rockets have been playing really well coming into this game. There was some adversity for the Spurs. The Rockets were allowing fans. There was even courtside fans, believe it or not. There's a wide range of fans in the arena. They were pretty loud. So this felt like more of a road atmosphere. And the road atmosphere is where the Spurs have thrived in this season. They can just tell their focus and their attention to detail. And I loved how they came right out of the gate and really, threw the first haymaker at the Houston Rockets, having a nice start to the game, got a double-digit lead early, kept that double-digit lead in the second quarter. And I know the Rockets did come back a little bit before halftime, but they did a great job of expanding that lead to 13 points in the third quarter. And the Rockets are going to make the runs. They're still, even without James Harden, they're very three-point happy. They're very one-dimensional, so it was kind of easy to guard them. And I think I love the way that the Spurs were, doing a great job of getting into the shooters, great defensive pressure. They even forced the Rockets to drive a couple times against their will. They didn't really want to, and that really caused the turnovers, because they're not used to driving the ball. They're used to just spotting up and shooting and having wide open looks. So when they drive the ball, I know they have some ball handlers, but there's not a situation that they're comfortable in, and they were throwing a lot of errant passes, and I think that really helped the Spurs, down the line. And again, everybody, Spurs fans, please put your reaction, any questions and analysis that you have in the comment section. Are we happy that the Spurs got this victory against the Rockets? Of course we are, but I want to hear from you, Spurs Nation. So make sure you put your comments in the chat section below. And we already got a couple comments already. And Tushar Patel is saying DeRozan's playing like an all-star. I agree, Tushar. DeRozan has been really picking up his game lately, especially now that we're getting to the, close to the end of all-star voting. He's really, like I said earlier, back-to-back 30-point games. I love his aggression. He's been the go-to guy down the stretch, putting the ball in his hands. And he does a great job of finding that balance of the score and what to play make. he's not the guy that just goes to score and just puts up a bunch of shots. No, he does a great job of really attacking the defense, making the defense collapse the paint, and then kicking it out to the open shooters. And even on the defensive end, I've been impressed. He's got a lot of great steals with his hands and his activeness on the defensive end on the floor. And Patel Pick and Roll Sports is saying, "Go Spurs, go!" Yes, go Spurs, go! We're going to take any victory that we can get. It was a couple tough games against the Memphis Grizzlies, losing both at home, but they rebounded against the Timberwolves. They got another great win tonight against the Houston Rockets. And let's see how the Spurs build on this, because they got the Golden State Warriors coming to town on Monday and a Tuesday, a back-to-back at the AT&T Center in San Antonio. And the Warriors have been playing really well. They completely thrashed the Mavericks on Thursday night. I believe they're leading tonight, so let's see what's going to happen. But let's just enjoy this victory, guys. And it was just a great, like I said, all-around performance. It wasn't just DeMar DeRozan that played well. Derek White had 14 points. I loved that he was both attacking the basket, shooting from three, with his long wingspan, being very active on defense, really doing it, making it tough on John Wall. I love that Pop put him on John Wall in the second half, and that really kind of took him out of his game. So I think, major props, to Derek White for being very active and very engaged on the defensive end of the floor. And that's where he made his money, coming into the league. He was a late first round pick, and the reason he got on the floor was on defense, and it really showed. And as he continues to improve his offensive game, his defensive game has remained consistent. So major props to Derek White. Keldon Johnson, the Spurs sensational second-year player. I love just aggressive he was being in the second half. In the first half, he settled for a little bit of outside shots, when the defense is daring him. But in the second half, he put his head down, was aggressive. He had a nice and one. I love he was very active on the rebounds, getting the Spurs extra possessions. So he had a very nice game. Devin Vassell made a lot of great shots, open shots from three, a couple of mid-range shots. He had a ferocious dunk on the fast break when Patty Mills fed him the ball. You can just tell he has a lot of power using that athleticism. So it was a great win for the Spurs, because they did not have the entire crew. Lonnie Walker was out, I believe, due to an injury, a stomach bug. LaMarcus Aldridge didn't play. He's been out the last couple games. So the young guys coming in, gaining experience, and growing within our eyes, are growing upon our eyes. I think that's really showed how the Spurs team is really putting things together. The young guys are really getting more comfortable playing, on the floor, playing with one another. They're vibing well off one another. They're figuring out how to play with one another. And I think it's just great collective Spurs basketball. In the second half, the ball movement was just beautiful. The cutting, the off-ball screens, the on-ball screens led to a lot of easy layups, a lot of open three-point shots. So I love that. I think the Spurs just had a fantastic game. Something that they could improve on in the first half, specifically the second quarter, and even a little bit in the third quarter also. They had a little bit too many turnovers. They were a little bit nonchalant with the ball at times when they had the lead. They were trying to make these tough passes, taking these tough shots, and that's not going to work in the NBA. You have to keep your foot on the gas pedal at all times. You can see that the guys can make a run, and they were allowed to get back at the game due to the Spurs sloppiness on the offensive end on the floor and with the turnover. So that's something that the Spurs need to clean up. But Pop, who's very detail-oriented, and despite a win, he'll always find something to coach the guys on. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing he's going to hone on before the Golden State Warriors come to town on Monday, because you can't afford to let the Warriors, get easy transition points off of turnovers. But before we get even to the Warriors, what a performance by the Spurs. We were like, how were they? I was wondering specifically, how are they going to respond after a very gritty win against the Timberwolves? Because, as young teams, they can be very inconsistent. They can have a great game up here, and then they can go down here and really struggle. But you could just see that Pop had them very focused. It was just a one-game road trip. I think they like playing on the road better, because they seem a lot more determined and play a lot looser and play a lot harder. when they had the lead at times, their defense was just outstanding. They were just really flying around, very active hands, getting a lot of deflections, getting a lot of rebounds, getting to the free throw line. I think that was the most impressive also today. The Spurs really put their head down. It started with DeMar DeRozan, but Derek White got to the free throw line. DeJounte Murray got to the free throw line, because that's important, because you're not always going to shoot the ball well from the outside. And if you're having, dry spells on the offensive end on the floor, the best way to get over a dry spell is to see the ball go through the net. And going to the free throw line, it's easy. It's a free throw. No one's offending you, and you can see the ball go through the net. So I think the Spurs were very energized tonight also, because I think they felt energized and empowered after coming back and stealing a victory against the Minnesota, because the Timberwolves pretty much dominated the entire game. But then it was flipped. The Spurs dominated pretty much the entire game. The Rockets didn't get their first lead until about midway through the fourth quarter, but the Spurs, responded well. They didn't let adversity hit them. Jakob Poeltl made 2 huge free throws when the Spurs were down by 2 after he got fouled. And I know he's been really struggling from the free throw line. Right now he's like 10 of 35, but when he has to make them, he'll make them. The same thing against the Timberwolves when they were down 2, and he was at the free throw line, had to make 2, and he buried them 2. And this time against the Rockets, he buried 2 clutch free throws that really allowed the Spurs to stay within striking distance of the Rockets. So I think the Spurs are playing a lot more confident, and they know their identity. They know they're going to be a defensive team first, because that's where it all starts. Because as Coach Popovich said, no defense, no wins. So it starts on the defensive end of the floor, getting turnovers, forcing the opponents to take in tough shots. On the offensive end of the floor, their identity is ball movement, getting to the basket first, and then getting to the basket will allow them to open up their three-point game, and allow them to get wide open three-point shots, and getting to the free throw lines also. So I think the Spurs know their identity. They're playing into their identity, and they're playing really well. I don't think anybody expected the Spurs, especially maybe outside of Spurs Nation, expected the Spurs to be playing this well this early in the season. And right now I know it's early for conference standings, but they're 8th right now in the Western Conference. And again, we need Spurs Nation. We need to vote DeMar DeRozan in to the All-Star game, as he's most likely going to be a reserve, but he deserves it. He's playing at an incredible level. I love his tenacity, his focus, his determination. So we need to go vote for him. February 16th is the end date. Full start on February 13th and February 16th are both days that once you vote, they count twice. So let's go vote and support our superstar, DeMar DeRozan, because he definitely deserves to get that recognition by the numbers he's putting up and the way he's, impacting the Spurs. Because he's not just, like I said earlier, just jacking up shots and trying to get his own. He's playing impactful basketball, both getting his teammates involved, scoring, and he's carrying the Spurs to victories. He's leading the Spurs to wins. And I think that's the biggest determinant of an all-star, that, the impact on your team. And he's a leader on that team also. I love how engaged he was in the huddle. He was talking to the guys, encouraging guys. He was clapping. He was talking to his teammates. And he was talking to Coach Pop, of course, trying to figure out ways to allow the Spurs to reach the potential and get the victory, which they did. And anytime you get a victory in this league, it's very hard to win, especially on the road. And there were some fans there also. What a win for the San Antonio Spurs. So like I said, their next game is going to be Monday at the AT&T Center against the Golden State Warriors. And then they're going to play back-to-back on Tuesday also against the Warriors. So let's quickly preview that series before we sign off for the night. So the Warriors have been playing really well. Like I said, they completely thrashed the Dallas Mavericks. Right now, I believe it's a close game right now. They're playing in Dallas. So the Warriors are playing at a great level right now. Steph Curry is starting to play at that MVP level. He's also fighting, for an all-star berth, whether it's our all-star appearance, I should say, whether it's him, of course, shooting from the outside, getting to the basket, getting his teammates involved. He's been playing really well. So it's going to be important for the Spurs he's the head of the snake. So the Spurs need to cut off the head of the snake with Steph Curry, getting everybody involved. Draymond is playing well. He's been getting a lot of doubles, whether it's rebounds, impacted defensive end on the floor. Oubre has been playing a little bit more confidently, as well as Andrew Wiggins. So the Warriors have been, playing well collectively as a group. Their defense has really improved also. I think that's the reason that they've been on this winning streak is because their defense has been outstanding. They really shut the Mavs down and really made it tough on the Dallas Mavericks to be able to score. So I think the defense end of the floor is where the Warriors really hang their hat, because as you know, Steve Kerr is a defensive-minded, even though he is an offensive-minded coach, he's really become more defensive-minded recently, especially after, Kevin Durant and the Big Four, was broken up. But so it's going to be a tough game. We owe the Warriors a game because Steph Curry went absolutely wild a couple weeks ago in San Francisco when the Spurs were on the road a couple weeks ago. So the Spurs need to come out focused. They need to start fast. DeMar DeRozan's going to have to continue to play at an all-star level. The other guys around him, DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Keldon Johnson. Let's see if LaMarcus Aldridge comes back, but those other supporting cast are going to need to play well also. The Spurs, I know, they really try to be a defensive team, but against the Warriors, they need to score. No matter if the Warriors don't have Kevin Durant or not, they're an offensive team. So the Spurs really need to match the Warriors offensively and score a lot of points, and then do just enough on the defensive end on the floor to be able to pull out the victory. I wouldn't be surprised if when Steph Curry gets the ball and they try to do that high pick and roll with him and Draymond or him and James Wiseman, the Spurs that pick and try to get the ball out of Steph Curry's hands and try to force the other guys to beat you. Because even if you do trap, the pick and roll, it is the Warriors may have an advantage, a 3-on-2 advantage, but the Spurs rotations have been excellent. So they need to be on point and really getting to those open men, whether it's in the paint or on the 3-point line. So the Spurs are going to have to rely on the rotations, talking on the defensive end, their communication, because you need to stop Steph Curry. If you don't stop Steph Curry and you let him have one of those Steph Curry type of games, then you're going to lose against the Warriors, because the Warriors players really feed off of Steph Curry's energy. So let's see if the Spurs are able to replicate this defensive effort. They need to cut down the turnovers. They can't allow the Warriors to get easy transition points. But it's going to be a tough game, in both games against the Warriors. They need to get back to the winning side at the AT&T Center after losing twice against the Memphis Grizzlies. So again, that game is going to be Monday night, 7:30 on Ken's 5, and they have a back-to-back against the Warriors. So it should be tough, but it's always fun going against the Warriors. Spurs and Warriors built a little bit of a rivalry back to the days, when they used to meet in the playoffs. So let's see what's going to happen, because the Warriors are also fighting for playoff seeding. Right now, I believe they're 7th in the West. Spurs are 8th. So if the Spurs want to continue to move up on those standings, they need to get victories against the Warriors. I would be happy personally if they split, but I'm going to be greedy as a Spurs fan. And let's say, come on, Spurs Nation, come on, Spurs. Let's cheer on the Spurs to get 2 wins against the Warriors, because that would really raise their confidence up, and especially if they do get 2 wins against the Warriors, they would be on a 4-game winning streak, and that would give them a lot of confidence going into a big road trip starting next Friday against Atlanta Hawks. So again, I will be back Monday night after the Spurs and the Warriors play at the AT&T Center. And thank you again, everybody, so much for watching. Thank you for the comments, and continue to give me your comments, your reaction to the Spurs win tonight, and we'll see you again Monday. Go Spurs, go.